Hi, my name's Lena, and I should have come sooner. I thought I was just visiting my mother, but the moment I stepped inside that house, something inside me broke. She was on the floor, not kneeling, crawling. Her hands were raw, her hair damp with sweat, and right next to her, a dog bowl, still full. And then I heard it, the daughter's voice, sharp like glass. "Here, you're just a servant." And they laughed. They laughed like it was normal. But I didn't come alone. And what happened after? That house. It didn't laugh again. So tell me, what would you have done? Before we dive in, what time are you listening to this, and where from? Drop a comment below. I promise, this is a story you'll never forget. I hadn't planned on visiting that Saturday. I was supposed to meet a client for brunch and finish drafting a real estate proposal, but I couldn't focus. For 3 days straight, Mom hadn't picked up my calls, and something about that silence didn't sit right. She always answered, even if just to say she was busy. That morning, I put on jeans and a hoodie, grabbed my keys, and drove down the long, flat roads toward her new neighborhood on the edge of Houston. It was late morning when I turned onto her street. The houses were mostly quiet, lawns trimmed, flags fluttering, dogs barking behind wooden fences. But my mother's yard stood out. The grass had gone too long without a cut. Trash bags sat slouched near the side gate, and a trail of dog toys, some chewed to bits, led toward the front door like breadcrumbs. A strange coldness prickled at the back of my neck. She used to keep her space spotless, even during the worst days of the divorce. Mom was proud of her home. It was where she'd invite people over and serve lemonade with those paper straws she liked so much. Seeing this kind of neglect, it wasn't just out of character, it was alarming. Her husband's family had never been warm to me. I'd felt it the moment I met them, those sideways glances, the way they corrected how I pronounced pecan, the passive-aggressive smiles. I never felt welcome in their house, even though it was Mom's too. I parked down the block and walked the rest of the way. My shoes crunched the dry grass as I approached the porch. The air was still, heavy. I knocked twice, then waited. Nothing. I tried the doorknob. It turned easily. The house was too quiet. No TV, no movement upstairs, not even the sound of a dog barking. Just the faint clink of something metallic from the kitchen. I stepped inside, slowly, cautiously. "Mom," I called, my voice low but firm. "It's me." No answer. I moved toward the kitchen. Each step felt heavier than the last. The scent hit me first, faint but unmistakable. Dog urine, bleach, something burnt. The kind of mix that clings to your nostrils. Then I saw her, kneeling, on the tiled floor. Her back was turned to me, and her hands moved in slow, tired circles over the tile beneath an open dog cage. She was wiping it with an old gray kitchen cloth. Her hair, once neatly tied back, hung loose and greasy. And next to her, a plate. On the floor. With scraps of food she was picking at, like she wasn't allowed to touch anything else. My feet refused to move. I felt like the air had been sucked from the room. She didn't look at me, didn't flinch, just whispered, as if she knew I was there all along. Don't say anything." I wanted to scream, to yank her up and out of there, but my voice, my body, was stuck. That single image burned itself into my memory like a brand. My mother, who once ran her own catering business and kept silverware polished to a shine, now crouched beside a dog cage, scrubbing tile with the same cloth she used to wipe her kitchen counters. "Don't say anything." Those words kept ringing in my ears. I was about to step forward when a loud voice cut through the silence. "Oh, please," a girl's voice spat, sharp and cruel. "Here, she's just a servant." I turned, and there she was, the husband's daughter. Blonde, fake tanned, wrapped in a towel like she'd just stepped out of a spa instead of the same house where my mother was on all fours. Then came the laughter. From the living room, a chorus of it, her siblings, their father. It wasn't just laughter. It was that kind of ugly, knowing laugh people use when they think you're beneath them. The kind that punches you in the gut. I didn't move, not yet. I looked at Mom again. Her head stayed low. Her hands still moved across the floor. In that moment, something in me snapped. Not in a chaotic way, but quiet, final. I wasn't leaving without answers, without her, and they had no idea. I didn't come alone. The moment the words left my mouth, the room froze. Every trace of laughter vanished from the living room like someone had cut a wire. The husband's daughter looked at me like I'd just spoken in a foreign language, her face twitching between confusion and something that looked a lot like fear. Behind me, my mother's body trembled slightly. I heard her whisper again, barely audible, "Please, don't." I knelt beside her but didn't touch her. I needed her to see that I wasn't here to cause a scene, but also that I wasn't walking away. Then came the knock at the door. 1, 2. It opened before anyone inside had the nerve to move. Officers Martinez and Holloway stepped in like they had been here before. Calm, steady, professional, but not distant. APS agents don't come in guns blazing. They come in like people who've seen too many versions of the same pain. I stood, nodded to them, then turned to face the family gathered now in the kitchen entrance. "Since no one's heard from my mother in 3 days," I said, making sure every word was calm and deliberate, "I filed a welfare request." The husband's jaw tightened. His eyes darted between me and the officers. "You had no right." "She's fine," one of the other daughters blurted. "We take care of her just fine." "She's not some pet," I snapped back. "You take care of a person by treating them like a human being." Martinez lifted a small notebook. "Let's keep this civil. We're here to assess well-being, not point fingers. For now." The room shifted. Energy, like a live wire, moved between us all. "I'm her husband," the man said, straightening his shoulders like he thought that meant something. "She likes to stay busy. She volunteers, helps out with cleaning, errands, keeps her active." I glanced at my mother. She hadn't moved from the spot near the dog cage. Still on the floor. Still gripping that stained gray cloth like it was the only thing tethering her to reality. "Volunteers," I repeated, quietly. "She was eating off the floor." "She forgets things," the daughter added quickly. "Sometimes she gets confused. It makes her feel useful to. She's not a broken appliance to keep busy." My voice didn't rise, but it cut through her like a blade. "She's a person, my mother." Holloway turned toward her. "Ma'am, do you feel safe here?" Mom didn't answer. Her mouth opened, then closed again. She looked down and gave the faintest shake of her head. Not a no, not a yes, just hesitation. And somehow that broke me more than anything. Because I knew that look. I'd seen it 100 times before. When I was 10 and she let my uncle stay, even after he, accidentally, broke our window during one of his outbursts. When she'd apologize at church for someone else bumping into her. When Dad would raise his voice and she'd smile and say, "It's okay, I probably misunderstood." She had been conditioned to make peace, to survive by shrinking. And it didn't start with this house, it just metastasized here. I glanced around again. The walls, the furniture, even the lighting. It all screamed controlled chaos. Pretty enough to pass as normal, cold enough to keep someone in line. Something inside me clicked. "I know her," I told the officers. "She would never eat on a floor by choice, not even if she were starving." The daughter stepped forward, arms crossed like she thought she still had power here. "You don't know anything about this house." I stared at her, steady. Actually, that's why I'm here. Martinez turned to the husband. We'd like to see the rest of the home. A beat of silence passed. You could practically hear the calculations churning in their heads. Then the daughter spoke again. Forced smile, fake lightness. Of course, I'll show you around. As they walked past me toward the hallway, I caught something I hadn't seen before in her expression. Not anger, not arrogance, fear. It flickered across her face so fast I might have missed it if I hadn't been looking for it. She turned her back too quickly, leading the way down the hallway, her voice louder than necessary as she said, "It's just down here." The hallway was dim, the kind of dim that made you squint, like your eyes were trying to adjust to something they weren't supposed to see. The wallpaper, once probably beige, had yellowed at the corners. A faint smell of bleach hung in the air, clinging to the walls like smoke after a fire. Martinez took out a small flashlight and shone it along the baseboards. There were dog crates, stacked, old, some rusted, and plastic bins overflowing with what looked like cleaning supplies. Mops leaned awkwardly in the corner, one still damp. I scanned everything, searching for signs of my mother's presence. Her perfume, a sweater, a photograph, anything. But there was nothing. She existed in this house like a ghost, always present, never seen. The daughter stopped at a door near the end of the hall and flung it open hard, as if to say, "See? Nothing to hide." The door hit the wall behind it with a sharp thud. What lay beyond it made my throat tighten. It wasn't a bedroom, it was a closet someone had tried to pretend was one. A thin, sunken mattress sat directly on the floor. No frame, no box spring. Just a single wrinkled blanket folded at the foot and a laundry basket tucked beside it. No lamp, no window. A tiny trash can sat in the corner. The air was stale and close, like it hadn't been aired out in weeks. I stepped back instinctively, like I'd walked into something too private, too wrong. Officer Holloway asked, "Whose room is this?" The daughter crossed her arms. "It's hers. She sleeps here so she doesn't disturb anyone. She's a light sleeper, and the dogs bark at night." The lie rolled off her tongue so smoothly, it almost sounded rehearsed. I looked at Martinez, his brow furrowed, but he stayed silent. I turned to Mom, who was standing behind me now, her arms wrapped tightly around herself, like she was trying to disappear into her own body. Holloway repeated, "Ma'am, is this where you sleep?" Mom didn't look up. She just nodded. "It's fine," she said softly. "It's quiet." That word, quiet, cracked something in me. Not because of what it meant, but because of how she said it. Like quiet was all she ever hoped for. Like comfort, dignity, safety. Those were luxuries she no longer expected. Only quiet. I stared at the mattress again. No pillow, no photos, no trace of a woman who had raised 3 children. Just a place to lie still and disappear. "She forgets things sometimes," the daughter said quickly, stepping forward. "We need to keep her on a routine. It helps her feel safe." She pointed to a laminated sheet taped to the wall. "Daily duties," written in large block letters. Underneath were the tasks. Clean dog cages, wash, floors twice, hand wash all dishes, prep meals by noon, no TV unless approved. And at the bottom, scribbled in red marker, "No complaining." My hand went numb reading it. Martinez snapped a photo. Holloway did the same. "I don't see your name on here," I said quietly, still staring at the list. The daughter's expression barely flickered. "She wants to help. You don't know what she's like these days." I didn't answer, because she wasn't wrong. I didn't know what Mom was like these days, but not because I hadn't tried, because I'd been kept away. She'd stopped returning my calls, always asleep, not feeling well, resting. And now, here we were, standing in a converted storage room with a mattress and a list that treated my mother like an unpaid maid. "She has good days," the daughter continued, "but she gets confused. We just try to make things easier." Martinez nodded once but said, "And who made this list?" She blinked. "I did." "So you assign tasks to her?" "She wants them," she snapped, then forced a smile. "It gives her structure." My mother's shoulders sank even lower. Holloway looked at her again. "Do you feel safe here, ma'am?" She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her eyes, though, they darted to the side to where the daughter was standing. And in that split second, I saw it. Not confusion, not fatigue. Fear. Real, raw, gut-level fear. I moved without thinking, stepping in front of her, gently but firmly placing myself between them. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't curse. I didn't need to. My body spoke for me. Whatever was happening here went far beyond just being overworked or underappreciated. This wasn't about forgetfulness or aging or being kept busy. This was coercion. This was control. And I was done pretending I didn't see it. Martinez's radio crackled softly. He muttered something into it, eyes still scanning the space. Holloway glanced toward the kitchen. "We'll need to see the rest of the property," she said. The daughter's smile cracked, just slightly. "Sure. What do you want to see?" "The basement," Holloway said simply. The air shifted. The daughter paled, and for the first time all morning, I saw panic. Real panic. Spread across her face like she'd been caught in the middle of something she never expected to be exposed. She tried to recover quickly, but the damage was done. Her smile stiffened, her posture straightened, and she walked faster than before, heading back toward the main hallway like she could outrun the moment. APS followed her, steady and silent, while I walked beside my mother, keeping close without making her feel crowded. The tension around us felt thick, almost heavy, as if the walls themselves were listening. When we reached the end of the hall, Martinez stopped directly in front of a narrow wooden door. No ornamentation, no window, nothing but an old brass knob. The kind of door people pretend leads to stored holiday decorations, but everyone inside the house knows it means something else. "We need access to the basement," he said calmly. The daughter snapped before he even finished the sentence. "There's nothing down there. It's messy. You don't need to go." She stepped right in front of the door, arms stretched wide, blocking it like she had practiced. Her father appeared behind her, wiping his palms on his jeans, eyes shifting everywhere except toward the officers. "It's just storage," he muttered. "Boxes, old tools, nothing important." My mother shivered beside me. I could feel the trembling through her sleeve. She kept her gaze low, but her breathing had changed. Faster, shallow, like she knew something we didn't. Holloway kept her tone level. "We still need to inspect it." "You're overstepping," the daughter said sharply. "This is our home." "This is an elder welfare check," Martinez replied. "Access is required. Refusal can be considered obstruction." The daughter's voice wobbled as she tried to keep it steady. "We're protecting her privacy." She didn't sound convincing, not even close. Holloway lifted her pen, noting the refusal. The daughter's chest rose and fell too quickly. She looked at me with a glare that tried to say I'd betrayed them, but I didn't flinch. I took a quiet breath, moved forward, and reached past her to try the knob myself. It didn't budge, locked, from the outside. I stared at it for a moment, then looked back at Martinez. His expression changed, even if only slightly. "Does she go downstairs often?" he asked. My mother murmured, "Only when they say I can." The words landed like a stone dropping into deep water. Holloway turned to the husband. "We need the key." "I don't know where," he started. Before he could finish, the daughter said, "It's not necessary. There's nothing unsafe down there." The officers didn't argue. Martinez simply lifted his radio, thumb resting on the button. If the key isn't provided, we'll call HPD to force entry. The silence after that sentence was loud. Finally, under pressure, the husband walked to a high cabinet near the kitchen doorway. He reached up with shaking hands and pulled down a single key, small, silver, worn. He didn't meet anyone's eyes as he handed it over. I watched the exchange, and in that moment, something inside me steadied. Whatever they'd been hiding, it wasn't minor. You don't guard a space this fiercely unless you're protecting yourself, not someone else. Martinez unlocked the door. The hinges creaked as it opened, thick air drifting up from below. We walked down the wooden steps, one at a time. The basement light flickered when the switch was flipped, casting the room in a dull yellow glow. It took a moment for my eyes to adjust. Cold, cluttered, damp. There were stacks of boxes, bags of old clothes, rusted tools left on open shelves. The air smelled faintly of mold and bleach. In the corner near the far wall sat a metal folding chair, thin cushion taped together at the seams. Right beside it was a tiny table holding cleaning bottles, gloves, and brushes, arranged neatly, like someone had prepared them for regular use. Holloway pointed gently. "Does she clean down here too?" The daughter, who had followed us halfway down but stayed near the stairs, snapped. "Someone has to. You think the place cleans itself?" Her words echoed off the concrete walls. My mother flinched, and that was it. The moment something inside me hardened. I wasn't angry in a loud way. It was quiet, cold, focused, the way pain turns into resolve when it has nowhere else to go. "This is not helping," Holloway said calmly. "You need to be aware this could qualify as neglect or psychological harm." The daughter rolled her eyes, but her face had gone pale. I took a step toward the metal table. There, folded neatly beside the brushes, was the same gray cloth I'd seen in the kitchen, the same one she had used to wipe under the dog cage, the same one she held like a lifeline. A memory rose without warning. Me at 8 years old, sitting on the top stair while my mother scrubbed the kitchen floor past midnight because my father wanted the house spotless before morning. She'd worked silently, shoulders tight, telling me, "It's just easier this way." She had never stopped scrubbing to survive. She had just found another house that demanded it. "She never got out," I whispered, barely hearing my own voice. The daughter sensed the shift and tried to regain control. "You're twisting everything. She lives here for free. She should at least contribute." "She contributes plenty," I said, turning toward her. "More than any of you." Martinez raised a hand to keep the peace, but the daughter's frustration spilled over. "She should be grateful," she said sharply. "We gave her a home. No one else wanted to deal with her." My mother's face crumpled at those words, not because they were new, but because she believed them. That was the moment APS stepped forward again. The tension in the basement thickened as Martinez asked the next question, one that sliced through the room with precision. "Has she ever been locked down here?" The daughter's answer came instantly. "No, never." Too fast, far too fast to be the truth. That instinct hit me before my mind even had the chance to catch up. The daughter's answer hung in the basement air like a sharp noise that didn't belong. It made everything else suddenly feel colder. She crossed her arms as if folding herself into a shield. "I already told you. She's never been kept down here." Martinez didn't say a word. He simply looked at her with that slow, patient silence APS investigators use when they've heard one lie too many. Holloway repeated the question, her voice steady, deliberate. "Has she ever been locked in this basement?" The daughter's jaw twitched. My mother squeezed her hands together, her eyes falling shut, like she was wishing herself far away from this entire moment. And then her husband stepped forward with a voice soaked in irritation. "She forgets things," he muttered. "She gets confused. You can't take anything she says seriously." That sentence snapped something in me. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was more like a clean fracture of patience. They had built their whole defense around breaking her credibility, around making her doubt her own reality. Before I could speak, Holloway crouched a little and pointed at the inside of the basement door. "What about these?" There were scratches, fresh ones, thin, desperate lines around the inner knob, like someone had clawed at it trying to open it from inside. I felt my stomach drop. Holloway stood and traced the latch installed on the outside of the frame. It was newer than the rest of the wood, shiny, smooth, recently added. "We'll need photographs," she said quietly. The husband stiffened. "That latch is for the dogs." "No dog can open a basement door," Martinez replied, lifting his camera. The daughter snapped back. "It's to keep them from getting into the storage boxes. They ruin everything." It sounded like she was trying to convince herself more than anyone else. APS wrote down another note. Intentional confinement. Possible. And suddenly the room felt much smaller. When they turned to my mother again, she seemed to shrink. Holloway softened her voice. "Has there been a time you were left down here and couldn't leave?" My mother's lips trembled before any sound came out. She didn't look at me. She didn't look at them. She stared at the concrete floor and whispered, "Sometimes. Only sometimes." Something inside me buckled. She immediately tried to correct herself, like she could erase the truth once it escaped. "I must have remembered wrong. I forget things. I'm sorry." That apology gutted me. Not because it was new, but because it was the same apology she'd used all my life when things weren't her fault. The automatic instinct of a woman who believed peace could only be earned by blaming herself. I didn't trust my voice, so I didn't speak. I watched APS move around the basement, documenting everything. The unplugged heater sitting in the corner, the stack of dirty towels, the bucket filled with cloudy water, no smoke detector, no airflow, no sign anyone considered this space livable except for the person who didn't have a choice. "This basement is not safe for any extended period," Martinez announced. "It should never be used for anyone's regular chores, let alone someone her age." The daughter fired back instantly. "She exaggerates. She always exaggerates." My mother whispered, "I'm sorry," for the third time. That was the breaking point. Every regret I'd carried, every missed call, every holiday I let slip because she insisted she was fine, every warning sign I brushed aside, surged up all at once. Not to overwhelm me, but to show me exactly how much I had overlooked. How long she'd been living like this while I convinced myself she was starting fresh. I stepped back from the group, needing air, needing space. The wooden stairs were right behind me, so I sat on the bottom step. Light from above drew a narrow line across the floor, and I stared at it, breathing carefully so I wouldn't fall apart. I looked around the basement again, and my eyes landed on the gray cloth, folded neatly beside a bottle of bleach. That cloth had followed her from room to room like a shadow. A silent companion she used to stay out of trouble. Cleaning had become her language of survival. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, and covered my face for a moment. There was a thought creeping into my mind, one I hated myself for even entertaining. If I stop pushing, maybe she won't be so scared. Maybe I should step back. Maybe... Then I heard the daughter upstairs, her voice drifting down the stairwell. She probably imagined half of this. You know how she gets, always mixing things up. Mocking, dismissing, reducing my mother to a burden. That did it. I stood up slowly, pushing everything else down so the clarity could rise. I walked back toward APS with a steadier breath. I want full documentation, I said quietly. Every scratch, every latch, every unsafe condition. I'm not leaving her here. Martinez nodded without hesitation. We'll be thorough. And then I felt something, a small shift behind me. My mother was looking at me, eyes filled with fear, confusion. And beneath it all, a glimmer of hope so faint it nearly broke me again. For the first time, she wasn't apologizing. I stayed beside her while APS finished notes. The house felt different now. Exposed, unsettled, stripped of the control they'd built around silence. When Martinez finally looked up at the daughter, he asked, "We'll need to review the home's security cameras. Are there any?" The daughter didn't miss a beat. "You don't have the right." Far too fast. Too sharp. Too rehearsed. That was all APS needed to hear. Investigator Holloway didn't flinch. She met the daughter's glare with a calmness that only made the tension sharper. "We're requesting access to review footage that may document the condition of your mother's care." The daughter crossed her arms hard across her chest, like she was trying to fold herself into a shield. "Those cameras are private property. This is an invasion of our home. You people are overstepping." Her father stepped forward, voice heavy, words slow like he wanted to smother the conversation. "We don't even use them anymore." That caught my attention. We'd passed a camera by the front door earlier. It had a blinking light. My mother had mentioned just last year that they always know when someone's at the door. Holloway raised an eyebrow. "So, they're off?" The husband shrugged. "The cloud storage expired. Nothing records." It was quiet, until the daughter, clearly agitated, snapped without thinking. "That's not true. I paid for another year last month." Silence. Heavy. Absolute. You could hear the weight of her mistake land in the center of the room. Holloway jotted something down without looking up. "Then let's review the past 7 days." My mother's hands trembled again. Her eyes shifted to the floor. I could tell the very idea of what might be on those tapes terrified her, more than anything else in this house. When APS repeated the request, the daughter turned and stormed toward the living room. "I'm not letting you twist what you see," she snapped. She headed for the modem, fingers outstretched. Martinez stepped into her path. "Ma'am, interfering with evidence could constitute obstruction." She froze, lips pressed tight, breathing heavy. They sat her down, took her phone. And while the tension hung in the air like a storm cloud, Holloway accessed the cloud portal from her tablet. My eyes locked on the screen. It was worse than I imagined. Clips loaded slowly at first: the hallway, the kitchen, the backyard. The first one they showed us, 1:12 a.m. My mother, kneeling on the tile, scrubbing the floor in the dark while everyone else was asleep. Her back hunched, moving slowly, no light except the glow from the fridge. Then another. Her carrying 2 heavy trash bags out to the curb. Alone, the daughter walking by, not offering to help, not even noticing. Then came the shouting, the daughter's voice, clear, loud. "You can't even keep track of your chores? Do I have to write it down for you again?" My mother stood in the corner, holding a plate, nodding wordlessly. I didn't realize I'd stopped breathing until the next clip played. She was in the kitchen. She placed a plate on the floor. And before she even sat down, the dog came over and began to eat. My mother waited, hands folded. That's when my stomach twisted. She was feeding the dog first. I turned to her. She'd started, crying quietly, like the sounds were too afraid to come out. She whispered, "They didn't mean harm. I don't want trouble." That's what broke me. Not the footage, not the yelling, not even the humiliation. It was that voice, that helpless defense, that need to protect the people who'd broken her spirit. Martinez asked gently, "Do you feel safe in this home?" The daughter exploded before my mother could speak. This is outrageous. You people don't understand cultural differences. We respect our elders. We give her structure. She's lucky we let her live here. Then she stepped forward, toward my mother. Reflex kicked in before thought. I moved fast, placing myself between them. My voice didn't rise, but it didn't waver either. Don't touch her. The room shifted. Holloway's tone went sharp. Step back, now. If you interfere again, we will call law enforcement. The daughter backed away, chest heaving. The husband tried to smooth things over. Let's all calm down. We're getting dramatic now. But his voice cracked under pressure. Then he turned on APS. This is harassment. She's old. She's confused. She lies. I stepped forward, finally letting all the words I'd held inside crash out. You used her kindness as free labor. You treated her exhaustion like laziness. You broke her spirit and called it care. The daughter sneered. She belongs here. She owes us. She doesn't owe you one more breath, I said, and I meant every syllable. APS looked at each other, then back at me. We're making a formal recommendation for temporary removal. She needs to be in a safe environment until further evaluation. My mother grabbed my wrist. Her fingers felt so small, so scared. Please, she whispered, barely audible. If they get angry, it'll be worse after. And that was the moment the husband stepped forward, face pale, eyes narrowed. He said something that made Martinez reach for his radio. He stepped forward, slow but deliberate, like a man who'd already decided no one was leaving his house without his permission. His voice dropped into something colder than I'd heard all morning. She's not going anywhere. This is my house. Martinez reached for his radio without breaking eye contact. We have escalating obstruction, requesting HPD backup, immediate. Behind him, the daughter moved into position like she was taking her cue. Her arms crossed, jaw clenched, eyes aimed directly at me. Like this was somehow my fault, like I'd dragged in the storm. My mother tightened her grip on my wrist. Her fingers were trembling. Please, she whispered, barely more than breath, don't make him angry. That plea, so quiet, so practiced, hit me harder than anything said out loud. The hallway between the kitchen and the front door suddenly felt narrower. The husband moved to block it completely, arms wide, stance set. You're not taking her, he said again, but louder now. She lives here. Martinez didn't move, didn't flinch. Sir, interfering with a protective investigation is a criminal offense. He didn't budge. That's when the daughter pulled out her phone. This is kidnapping, she shouted, pointing it at Holloway. I'm recording all of this. Y'all are gonna get sued. Holloway, cool as ever, kept documenting. Please continue. We're mandated to record interactions as well. I stepped toward my mother, slow and careful, placing my hand on the small of her back, not pushing, just anchoring her. She leaned ever so slightly into me, like she needed that to stay upright. Then the daughter turned on my mother. Tell them you're fine. Tell them you want to stay. She barked like an order, not a question. My mother opened her mouth, but nothing came. Just that same haunted look. The one I hadn't been able to name as fear, not really until now. The husband growled behind us. You're scaring her. She can't think straight. She needs to stay here where it's calm. Holloway looked at him evenly. If this home were calm, sir, she wouldn't be trembling. That's when I stepped forward, not looking at either of them, only at APS. He's using her fear. This is coercion. You can see it. Holloway nodded. We can, and we're documenting everything. I pulled out my phone, opened the photo album. You should see the basement, the locked door, the cleaning supplies, the chore chart tacked up like she's the help. I watched their eyes scan each image, saw something settle in them, something decisive. Then everything shifted again. The husband turned, reached for the drawer near the hallway. Martinez's voice snapped through the air like a warning shot. "Step away from the drawer, now!" He froze, hand hovering, sweat starting to bead on his forehead. He pulled it back slowly, empty. But it didn't matter. It was enough. "We're declaring the client unsafe," Holloway said. "She will be removed from the home." The daughter lost it. "You can't do this. She's ours. You can't take what belongs to us." My mother flinched like she'd been slapped, not from the volume, but the words. What belongs to us? Like she was property. I pulled her closer. "You're not theirs," I whispered in her ear. "Not anymore." Martinez and Holloway moved between us and the family. The hallway now had a barrier they couldn't cross. Holloway's voice was steady. "You will step aside or Houston PD will escort you." The daughter hovered near the basement door, shaking, her eyes darting, like she might bolt. My mother's hand trembled in mine. Then she said so softly I almost missed it, "They won't let me go." And just as those words settled in the air like fog, the doorbell rang, flashing red and blue, danced across the front windows. HPD had arrived, but before anyone could breathe relief, the daughter made her move. She lunged toward the router shelf like she'd rehearsed it. Her fingers clawed at the tangled cords. One sharp yank, and everything went dark. The blinking lights died, and with them, the house seemed to hold its breath. "You can't take what's mine," she screamed, clutching the router to her chest like a lifeline. "The cameras are our property. This is illegal." HPD had barely stepped 1 foot into the house when one of the officers barked, "Step away from the equipment, ma'am." She didn't flinch. "It's not evidence. It's all lies. She's lying. She's always been a liar." My mother let out a sob and folded into the chair behind her. Her body shook with a quiet so violent it made more noise than the yelling. "She's hyperventilating," I said aloud, stepping toward her, but Martinez motioned me back. One officer was already kneeling beside her, checking her pulse. The daughter was still shouting, but now it was more scattered, like her words had lost their shape. The moment was unraveling, and so was she. The husband tried to keep his stance, arms crossed, chin raised like this was some negotiation. But I could see it, the panic in his eyes, just beneath the surface. HPD moved fast. The officer nearest the router retrieved it, holding it up carefully. "We can connect this remotely. Doesn't matter if she unplugged it." The husband's mouth twitched. The daughter spun away, pacing like a caged animal. APS took the lead again. "We will now proceed with a full inspection and digital recovery. Please stay where you are." They didn't argue anymore. They just watched with tight jaws and darting eyes as a second APS investigator entered with a small laptop and portable hotspot. Within minutes, they were connected again. I sat beside my mother. She was trying to breathe slowly now, but her hands still trembled, one knotted into that familiar gray cloth. Her anchor. I slid my fingers gently over hers. "I'm here," I whispered. "You're not alone this time." That's when Holloway found the notebook. It was sitting right on the coffee table, as if it had been used that morning. A small spiral-bound log, pages worn at the corners, no locks, no pretense. She opened it carefully. "Is this yours?" she asked the daughter. "It's a joke," the daughter replied too quickly. "Just stupid stuff I wrote to vent. Doesn't mean anything." But APS wasn't laughing. They read aloud, "Make sure she earns her keep. If she talks back, send her downstairs. Don't let her rest during the day." My mouth went dry. My mother covered her face. The daughter stepped forward. "I didn't mean any of it. That's just how people talk when they're frustrated." "It's dated from 3 weeks ago," Holloway said, turning the page. This isn't frustration, this is pattern. Meanwhile, HPD had managed to pull archived footage from the cloud backup. The first clip was short, just 13 seconds. My mother, sweeping the kitchen floor at 1:12 in the morning. Next, one of her carrying what looked like heavy laundry baskets, while the daughter scrolled through her phone nearby, not bothering to help. Another, my mother placing a plate of food on the floor for the dog before sitting down to eat herself. Laughter from someone off camera. And one more. My mother, pausing as she reached for a chair. She looked over her shoulder, nervous, then sat for no more than 10 seconds before the daughter stormed in, snatched the chair out from under her, and said, "You don't rest until it's done." I had to look away. My stomach turned, but it was the silence in the room that felt loudest. Nobody could defend it now, not even them. Then the husband made his move. "You don't understand how families work," he said through gritted teeth. "She's old. She forgets things. We give her structure, routine." APS turned, expression flat but voice firm. "This isn't structure. This is cruelty masked as care." He stepped toward me, finger pointed, face red. "You show up here and now she's scared? You did this. You brought this mess into my house." Before I could even open my mouth, HPD blocked him. "Step back." But my mother reached out suddenly, clutching my arm. "Don't fight him," she said, eyes wide. "Please, don't." And that's when something inside me shifted. I had been holding back, not wanting to scare her, not wanting to push too hard. But this wasn't about preserving her comfort anymore. It was about saving her life. I stood straight and said clearly, "She is leaving this house. Today." APS nodded. "She will be removed immediately under emergency protective order." And then the moment I had feared for so long came. And didn't. She didn't protest. She didn't flinch. She didn't beg them to stay. She nodded. Tears rolled down her face, slow and quiet. But her body didn't shake the way it had before. That gray cloth still hung from her hand like a forgotten ribbon. Something she carried so long, she didn't even know she was holding it anymore. She had knelt with it. Now she stood with it. HPD cleared the way. APS gave firm instructions. The family must remain in the living room while we escort her out. I helped her gather what little she had. A worn purse, 2 changes of clothes, and a pair of old shoes in a plastic bag. It all fit in one small tote. That was her whole life. As we crossed the hall, she kept glancing behind, toward the basement door, toward the walls that had heard her pain. "You don't have to kneel here anymore," I told her softly. She didn't respond, but she squeezed my hand. Not just out of fear, out of hope. And just as we reached the front door, she stopped. Her fingers curled around mine tighter, and then she leaned in, lips trembling, eyes searching mine. And she whispered something none of us expected, something that changed everything. She leaned close to me, her voice no louder than a breath. "There's something I never told you." Her hand tightened around the doorframe. APS paused mid-step. Even HPD fell into a hush, as if the entire house leaned in. My heart dropped. "I tried to leave," she whispered, eyes locked on the floor. "Months ago, I packed a small bag, but she caught me. She said, if I ever spoke to anyone, she'd send me away to a home. A place where no one would visit, where I'd be forgotten." She didn't cry when she said it. She just looked tired, like she'd been carrying that secret around for too long. "I stayed," she added softly, "because I thought being useful was better than being alone." Those words cracked something in me that hadn't broken yet. That wasn't just fear. That was resignation. I placed my hand over hers on the doorframe. "You were never alone," I told her. "They just made you believe you were." The air felt heavy as we stood there, but not empty. It was the weight of truth finally spoken aloud. Behind us, one of the officers nodded at the APS caseworker, and the tone of the room shifted. More official now, sharper. The lead officer stepped forward. Based on evidence and witness testimony, we're confirming substantiated abuse, emotional and physical. Further charges may be pending. The daughter, now seated on the couch with her arms crossed, erupted again. She's lying. She's always twisted things. This whole thing is— Ma'am, the officer cut in, you are being temporarily escorted out while we complete this removal. Any further obstruction may result in arrest. She stood, still yelling, but 2 officers calmly guided her outside. The husband didn't say anything. He just sat there, jaw clenched, staring ahead, like it was all a bad dream he hadn't woken up from. APS leaned toward my mother gently. We've arranged a temporary placement where you'll be safe. Your daughter is applying for guardianship. My mother nodded, then looked at me, her voice barely audible. I'm sorry. You don't need to be, the caseworker said kindly. None of this was your fault. We moved slowly through the front hallway. I wrapped one arm around her shoulders, steadying her. Her steps were small but sure. Outside, the air was crisp and clean, the late afternoon sun hitting her face for the first time that day. She stopped halfway down the front steps. Her eyes flicked back toward the house, the door still open behind us. Her past still standing there, waiting. Please, she said quietly, don't let them talk to me again. I promise, I told her, they won't, not without me there. One of the officers stood by the car, holding the door open. She walked slowly, still clutching that gray kitchen cloth in her hand. The same one she'd gripped through the worst of it. Now it wasn't clutched. It was held gently, like something she wasn't sure, whether to keep or let go. We drove in silence. She didn't ask where we were going. She just looked out the window, eyes far away, hands folded in her lap like she was afraid to touch anything. The extended stay hotel wasn't fancy, but it was clean, quiet, safe. Inside, she ran her fingers along the edge of the nightstand, then across the folded towel at the end of the bed. I can sleep here? She asked, voice tinged with disbelief. I don't have to clean anything? You rest, I said. You're safe. She looked at the lamp, then at the remote control, and back to me. I don't know what to do now. You just be, I told her. That's enough. She sat on the edge of the bed for a long time before lying back. I turned off the overhead light, leaving only the lamp's soft glow. In the hallway, I stepped out to make a call to the social worker to confirm the next steps. They'd be helping with legal paperwork and checking in daily for a while. But then she said something that made me stop pacing. Just so you know, last month, the daughter tried to file a complaint, claimed your mother had behavioral issues, that she wasn't safe around the kids. My stomach clenched. That was it. The beginning of a plan. Set her up, isolate her further, push her out legally, make it seem like they were protecting others from her instead of the other way around. She almost lost everything, but I didn't say that. I just thanked the social worker and ended the call. When I walked back in, my mother was asleep. For the first time in years, she looked light. Not smiling, not happy, but not bracing herself for harm. Her hand was curled next to her face. The gray cloth rested on the bedside table, folded neatly, not used, not needed. The next morning, I brought her a small breakfast, eggs, toast, and tea, from the lobby downstairs. She sat up slowly, blinking at the tray like it was something foreign. You didn't have to, she whispered. I wanted to. She took a bite, then paused. Thank you, she said. The words sounded raw. I sat beside her and placed my hand over hers. You don't have to earn love through labor, I told her. Not from me, not from anyone. She looked down at our hands and said, I didn't know that, not until now. The cloth stayed folded where it was. No longer a tool, just a thread in her story. In the days that followed, I filed the paperwork, met with a senior advocate. APS continued their investigation. HPD followed up. The daughter and her husband weren't yelling anymore. They were silent now, sitting in interviews, facing what they thought they'd never have to answer for. But that was no longer our focus. We were rebuilding, slowly, quietly. I helped her choose her own clothes again, encouraged her to watch old movies, the ones she used to love. "You're not serving anyone anymore," I told her one morning as I brought her tea. "You're being cared for," she nodded, and this time there was a flicker of something new in her expression. Peace. Not the kind that erases the past, but the kind that makes it bearable to face the future. Some wounds take time to loosen their grip, but for the first time, my mother wasn't kneeling. She was standing beside me, free.